gaydar, or gay detection machine, that should paint over 17 victims of North Korea's abduction, although North Korea only claims they abducted 13, which to me is
what? Like, bro, you abducted 17 people. Chill, bro. It was only 13. You're doing too much. Hey, let's go.
Project Sunshine is also known as the Dead Baby Project, and that alone should
Believe me when I say I'ma pull up when the stage drops. Believe me when I say she don't look good. Believe me.
Yo, what it is, TC? It's your boy Srotonn here, but you can call me Tone. All right, listen. We finna watch crazy conspiracy theories turn out to be true. Now, I'm be honest. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. It's just not my bag. But I don't shun away the ideas, though, if that makes sense. But let's get into it.
crazy conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. The Canadian fruit machine. The fruit machine is an ambiguous name, but if you
why does that have a rainbow on it? I don't think I've ever heard of this.
have a keen
Canadian
mind,
fruit
you might have
machine.
had a few assumptions on what it could have been about. But if you're still in the dark, let me give you its other name, Canada's gaydar, or gay detection machine. That should paint
Ain't no way this shit is true.
a bit of a clearer picture.
I'm
if I
not
told you that
believing
the
it.
Canadian government in the 1960s came up with a strange device and series of tests
gaydar?
specifically made to identify
Do you
gay
like
men
men?
so that they could discriminate against them, you would call me crazy, right? Well, you're not alone, but unfortunately, you are wrong. And the Canadian government
Wow.
did exactly that. Let me explain. The whole point of this fruit machine was essentially to identify and remove homosexual men working in government roles, specifically in the military and law enforcement. During
What?
the 1960s, Dr. Frank Robert Wake developed a rather strange series of psychological tests with the purpose of, obviously, identifying gay men. How this machine actually
I don't believe this. What I do believe, I think they might have put them through the machine and then they might have it might sound fucked up, but they might have saw different, mannerisms or different the way you pronounce certain things and then assumed off of that you were gay and then maybe, I don't know, 50% was true or some shit.
worked was kind of hilarious and extremely rudimentary. Basically, all it would do is it would show you erotic images and say, essentially, gay buzzwords to see if your body had any sort
Wiener.
of positive reaction to this stimuli. One of the
Oh,
markers they were looking
shit.
for was a dilation of the subject's pupils, among other things. This was essentially the equivalent of a lie detector, but instead of detecting lies, it was detecting the big gay. Regardless of its
gay.
ineffectiveness and rather strange methods to begin with, the results were taken seriously and led to the firing and discrimination of thousands of people, which
That's fucked
unfortunately
up.
led to a huge rise in suicides, which is just
Damn.
heartbreaking. This
Yeah.
entire project was discontinued in the late 1960s, making this entire fruit machine fiasco very short-lived, at least relatively.
I didn't even know you could do that. Like a positive reaction, maybe it's positive and shocking. That's not, they know how to differentiate that on the machine.
But the impact was still long-lasting. On top of the jobs and lives lost, the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, still continued to collect files on suspected gay people for years
Oh
after this project
my
was
God.
concluded. So if you're ever with a friend and they say,
I
that
believe it.
guy's
It's the
gay, I can
1960s.
tell because I have gaydar. Tell them, you don't have gaydar. The Canadian government had gaydar, and they used it to discriminate, whether they were gay or not. As any little twinkling of evidence was good enough for them.
Conversation starter
This had
right there.
huge impacts. Then just sit there and awkwardly look at each other for a few minutes, and if they ask you how you knew this, you know what to tell them. Trust
Hell
me, bro.
yeah.
The
Trust
gay
me,
bomb.
dog.
While we're on the topic
gay
of the
bomb.
big gay, I have one more for you. That being the gay bomb, which was a non-lethal chemical weapon theorized by,
Non-lethal chemical
surprise,
weapon.
surprise, the United States military. Specifically, the
Yeah.
Air Force. This bomb's purpose was simple yet strange. It was meant to be dropped over enemy territories, spreading
To
a
make
chemical
them gay?
mixture in the form of gas that would turn enemy troops essentially homosexual. This hypothetical
What the
weapon
f-
was confirmed in a 1994 Department of Defense document. Where
It had to be like something that messes with you that makes you super horny or some shit. Like they drop ecstasy chemicals in the air or some bullshit.
spoke of a hypothetical weapon designed to dispense sexual pheromones among enemy forces to generate mutual attraction. Now, initially, I thought the
Oh
military
my
application would be that the
God.
soldiers would just be too busy loving on each other to get any fighting done, but that wasn't the case.
Of
It's actually
course
a lot
not.
less interesting. Supposedly, the entire point was to cause confusion and panic amongst these troops, reducing their effectiveness in battle. Picture this. The year is 1993. You and your friend are sitting on the couch watching the movie Sniper.
Listen, y'all. be honest with y'all. This is how I feel. You can feel different. You can't just drop a bomb on somebody and make them gay. Me, as a heterosexual man, you cannot drop anything around me and makes me a homosexual. Now, how it works, y'all. Come on, it's 2025.
Which just
I'm
came
just
out.
saying.
When all of a sudden you say to your friend jokingly, I bet the US government's probably thought about making bombs that would turn the enemies gay. You and your friend have a chuckle and continue the movie. However, the following year, you are hanging out with the same friend again, and instead of watching a movie, you are doing something that every teenager does, reading a Department of Defense release, when all of a sudden you see actual confirmation that the US Air Force was contemplating a gay bomb. After reading this, you're shocked, and you look your homie in the eyes and can't believe that your silly little joke was true. And in that moment, you and your friend start making out because you guys were gay.
I knew it. I was like, I knew it. You can tell it's coming.
All right, seriously though, the first two are a bit silly, but these get a lot more serious. Project MK Naomi. As I said, Project MK, I'm sure the word Ultra was the first thing that popped into your head. And that's because most people know about that crazy conspiracy theory. And for that reason, I wanted to add something a bit different. Project MK Naomi was actually the successor of MK Ultra, and was a collaboration between the CIA and the US Department of Defense. And it went on for almost 2 decades, from the 1950s to the 19...
I will say one organization that I am 100% scared of, CIA. Yeah. I've watched a lot of documentaries, a lot of shows. Boy.
1970s. The entire goal of Project MK Naomi was to gain a deeper knowledge on chemical and biological warfare weapons, specifically to determine what substances would kill people and what chemicals would do what to people. Once the CIA and Department of Defense had a list of chemicals and a list of reactions ranging from irritation all the way to death, they then started focusing on unique delivery systems for these chemicals. Most notable...
Well, you see what I'm saying, bro? Like, what are they doing?
Which being dart guns, specifically dart guns either filled or having their tip coated with these specific chemicals, with one of the most famous examples being the heart attack gun, which was, like you may have guessed, a gun that shot a dart at a target that would, shortly after injection, cause a heart attack in the victim, making a very intentional death seem accidental. And it's no doubt that these weapons would have been very useful for spies, especially during the Cold War, when tensions and the need for a good spy was at an all-time high. And if you're
That's some scary shit, bro. You really gotta oh my God, you gotta be careful what you do in life, bro. You just walking and then you out of there. Like, that's so fucking scary.
For those unfamiliar with Project MK Ultra, it's basically the government using LSD on non-consenting individuals to try to test mind control as a very basic elevator pitch.
I've heard of this one.
Most of you are aware of that one. USA's fake Cuban attack. This video is quickly taking a very dark turn, but that's kind of how these lists go. In 1962, during the Cold War, the US wasn't just tense with Russia, it also had growing tensions with its southern neighbor, Cuba, specifically because Fidel Castro had risen to power in Cuba and was a rather large proponent of
I've seen so many videos about this dude, bro. Like, I don't even really, man.
Or at least kept a very good relationship with Russia.
During
this time, the US experienced the Cuban Missile Crisis, which simply put was Russia putting their nukes in Cuba because the US had put their nukes in Turkey and Italy. This situation was scary, but it was resolved safely. However, the US did not forget, hence them coming up with Operation Northwoods. The plan suggested that the government would carry out a series of fake terrorist attacks on the American military and civilians, to then blame Cuba for
this is real?
These attacks and then justify
again, not surprised, because boy, it's been said, allegations, alleged, boy, it's been said a lot that America will do anything to get their people in line.
Going to war. Some of these crazy actions that they planned on doing to their own people was hijacking planes, sinking boats, and even bombing US cities. All done intentionally to point the blame at Cuba. But this wasn't just a get back for the Cuban Missile Crisis. This plan was part of a larger effort to oppose Fidel Castro's communist government, which was aligned directly with the Soviet Union, the USA's enemy at the time. And with the Soviet Union having an ally so close to US soil, the US was feeling the heat. Although, would that have justified any of these actions?
Why do you say it like that? What's a feeling the heat?
That being said, fortunately, none of these actually happened. Although it's not because the government had a change of heart and realized this was awful. President John F. Kennedy simply rejected the plan because he thought that this would cause a large-scale war against...
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to JFK, man. For this. So who knows what else he's done. But shout out to him to being like, nah, it's a little too much.
Russia, which he deemed to be too risky. Regardless though, none of these horrible attacks injured any innocent people, which is great. And nobody even knew about it until 1997, when the documents were declassified and made public. So yeah, although the government didn't sacrifice its own people in the name of war, they definitely heavily considered it, which is definitely concerning. North Korea abducting Japanese citizens.
Oh, shit.
During the late 1970s to early 1980s, there were rumors spreading around coastal Japan that North Korean agents were abducting innocent Japanese citizens and taking them back to North Korea for a plethora of reasons. This rumor even gained government attention and was simply brushed off as a conspiracy theory that had absolutely no merit. That was until it was proven to be right. Between 1977 and 1983, North Korean agents were doing exactly what I described, abducting Japanese citizens from coastal cities of Japan and taking them back to North Korea for a multitude of reasons. And these people weren't your typical abduction victim. They weren't prostitutes or homeless or anybody who seemed potentially vulnerable. They were seemingly chosen at random, making this even more scary and bizarre. The Japanese government officially recognizes over 17 victims of North Korea's abduction, although North Korea only claims they abducted 13, which to me is
what? Niggas be like, bro, you abducted 17 people. Chill, bro. It was only 13. You're doing too much. Like, huh?
It's even crazy that they admitted to anything. But some people suggest that over hundreds of people were taken. These victims were ranging anywhere from teenagers to adults, and were kidnapped for, like I mentioned, various reasons, but were most commonly used to teach Japanese or Japanese culture to North Korean spies. So
jeez.
that these North Korean spies could acclimate to the culture and essentially blend right in. Besides teaching at these schools, they would also provide fake IDs for covert operations, as these people weren't going to be in Japan, so spies could take their identity and use them. The only reason that North Korea ever even admitted to any of the abductions was because after investigations by the Japanese authorities, there was simply no doubt at all that these abductions were happening and that these people were in North Korea. It was only until there was absolutely no one else to blame and nowhere else to go for North Korea that they finally admitted. Unfortunately, there really is no happy ending to this story.
This serious ass shit, I will say I do enjoy that it is cartoon because it makes it a little bit more lighter, but this is some serious ass shit. They fucking abducted, confirmed 17 people, and then they're confirming 13. So who knows what the real number is, bro? Like, that's
chances are that these abductions have gone on much longer, and there has been many more victims.
It seems like, I'm sure spies are here today. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like, boy, back in the day, boy, they was serious about this infiltrating shit
that we could have ever imagined in this situation.
Not saying they're not
with
now,
the way that things are currently with North Korea, it's very likely that they will never be held accountable for literally abducting, torturing, and killing innocent Japanese citizens. The U.S. government poisoning alcohol. It's no conspiracy theory that from 1920 to 1933, the U.S. government banned alcohol, hence this time being known as the Prohibition era, as alcohol was literally prohibited. But besides passing laws and regulations to ensure that no alcohol was being produced or distributed, the U.S. government also took a few additional steps to really deter people from consuming alcohol. What the government chose to do was add methyl alcohol into industrial grade
methyl alcohol. I've never heard of that. What is that?
Alcohols to deter human consumption. It's theorized that the government assumed that having these deadly poisons in this alcohol would cause some of these illegal consumers of alcohol to pass away, deterring these bootleggers to
pass away, not even get sick. Get y'all up out of here.
Sell their product, as it was killing their customers. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and the bootleggers continued to sell, and alcoholics continued to drink. And unsurprisingly, as a result of this, many people were poisoned and died. And in 1927, in New York alone, there was over 41 deaths confirmed to have come from alcohol poisoning from tainted alcohol, specifically the methyl alcohol. The government used this strategy up until 1933 when the prohibition ended, and it was at that point confirmed that the U.S.
Boy, this, if anything ain't teach me, boy, listen, if some shit is illegal, man. But how did they even get, if this was supposed to, because you know how people was like bootlegging and shit, how did they get their hands on the bootleg alcohol before they got to sell it to, you know, the public? Amen.
Government was literally poisoning alcohol, as it was recorded as a strategy to curb alcohol consumption. So yeah, the U.S. was intentionally putting a deadly...
Then they underestimated how much people like to drink. There are people who to this day drink every day. Like start their day off with maybe a shot, a glass, a fucking cup. People, bro, when it comes to people addictions, bro, you can't underestimate how how far people would go. People be like, it's worth it.
Chemicals into products that
You
they
can't
knew that
underestimate
people were
people's
consuming. I find this one a bit
addictions.
interesting because although people weren't supposed to be consuming this, the US government knew that people were going to consume this. So
Of
the
course
fact
they
that they
did.
intentionally put deadly chemicals into it, to me, is a bit concerning. This might just be an optimistic thought, but I would like to believe that
Concerning, but I'm not surprised.
there's a way where you can deter people from drinking illegal industrial grade alcohol without putting literal poison.
That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe the poison could have been like, I don't know, explosive diarrhea or something, bro. Like, to kill them, my nigga, like shit.
That's going to undoubtedly cause death. Like potentially adding an agent that is extremely sour
Undoubtedly.
or potentially even extremely spicy, making the alcohol
Exactly.
essentially unconsumable as it's so uncomfortable to drink, but still
Right.
rendering it non-lethal. As great as this sounds, this might have not been an option, as those sorts of additives may have rendered the actual industrial grade alcohol less effective, which wouldn't have worked because this alcohol needed to serve its primary purpose, as it wasn't meant to be consumed. It was literally industrial grade. But
That's
yeah, anyway,
crazy.
from 1920 to 1933, the US government decided that the best way to deter people from drinking alcohol was by killing them, or at least slowly poisoning them, which I wouldn't say is much better. The USA's
all.
fake Vietnam attack.
I've never heard about this.
And we're already back. Does this story sound at all familiar? But seriously though, I could make an entire separate video focusing solely on extremely deplorable things that the US government has done. But I
Yeah.
do value living, so if you really want that video, let me know in the comments. But
Hell no. Hey, listen, brother. Protect yourself, brother. Protect yourself. You ain't got to do it for us.
if not, I probably won't make it.
Yeah,
That being
don't
said,
make
let's
that
get
shit.
into the
Fuck
fake
that.
Vietnam attack. In 1964, USA was, of course, beefing, this time with northern Vietnam. This entire situation is known as the Gulf of Tonkin incident, and it marked a pivotal moment in the escalation of the US involvement in the Vietnam War. The situation happened in early August of 1964 and involved U.S. naval vessels conducting operations off the coast of North Vietnam. On August 2nd, the U.S. destroyer
Damn,
the
Maddox
USS
was
Maddox
attacked on
was
August
conducting
2nd?
intelligence patrols. And on this patrol, it encountered 3 North Vietnamese torpedo boats. There's a small conflict which led the Maddox to fire warning shots at the torpedo boats and the torpedo boats to respond with an unsuccessful attack. The Maddox suffered minor
So were these the
damage.
You better
Literally
get to
only
it.
took a single bullet hole, but the North Vietnamese torpedo
Was
boats
it
were
big?
significantly damaged, with crew either dead or severely injured. This entire encounter happened because the North Vietnamese were pretty sussed out about covert US-backed operations happening on their
Okay, so this was
Regardless,
this was
incident
actually Vietnamese soldiers.
relatively minor in regards to the Vietnam War as a whole. But what isn't is the alleged second attack that happened 2 days later on
Alleged
August 4th,
allegations.
1964. It was claimed that on this day, another attack on the USS Maddox and the USS Turner Joy had taken place. The ships were claimed to have been targeted based on radar signals and intercepted communications between the North Vietnamese. However, with these claims seeming very plausible, there was little to no evidence and were later debunked. The captain of the USS Maddox
So again, bro, it seems like a lot of them, they just wanted to get people like, hey, we're not doing this for no reason. We're doing this because they keep fucking with us. But sometimes maybe it just allegedly, sometimes it might have just not been true.
John Herrick was almost instantly questioning the validity
This is
of these
interesting.
claims, as he was the captain and heard no such thing of this second attack. And shortly after, the entire attack was debunked and proven to be nothing more than manipulation. Investigations even confirmed that there was no North Vietnamese forces present anywhere near either of these ships that
Tough.
night. And the intelligence that they had misinterpreted was simply manipulated to spin the story of a potential second attack. The reason why I'm talking
That's what I figured it was.
about this fake attack is because it was used as justification to amplify the war. Congress
That's
even passed the
crazy.
Gulf of Tonkin Revolution, which allowed the US's involvement in Vietnam to escalate heavily, leading to significant troop deployments and a major intensification of the war. It wasn't until years
they just
later,
needed
after
a
the war had
reason, pretty
ended, that the
much.
US Department of Defense admitted that the second attack never happened. And even later on, declassified documents confirmed that there was a strategic plan to use this fake second attack as a pretext to escalate the war, which ended up becoming one of the most
I
controversial
will say, bro, that's what's so crazy about, like, all that shit is written down. So if they got evidence of it or they got their plan, but that shit is written down.
wars in U.S. history.
How did
There's
this
no
nigga-
doubt that the Vietnam War was controversial, and this is only a tiny glimpse of some of the stuff that was going on, at
Yeah.
least on the U.S. side of things. Project Sunshine. Fair warning, there is a reason why this entry is at the end of the list, and that's because it is by far the most morbid subject in this entire video.
Oh,
Project
fuck. Okay. I am locked in. Let's go.
Sunshine is also known as the Dead Baby Project, and that alone should
Oh,
give you a small glimpse into the insanity that is this
Dead
conspiracy
baby.
theory proven true. Project Sunshine was a secret research project that was launched in 1953 to study the effects of radioactive fallout on human health and the environment. Already off
used
to a bad
babies
start. The
to
focus
test
of this
it?
radioactive testing was specifically on strontium-90, which is regarded as the deadliest byproduct of nuclear detonation. The United States Atomic Energy Commission aimed to measure the amount of strontium-90 in human tissue, as it was
Okay.
typical for it to accumulate in human bones, specifically in children's bones whose skeletal systems were still developing and most vulnerable. Now here's the thing, as much as they potentially would have wanted to subject real
How did they get the babies?
children to strontium-90 to study the side effects, they were not able to do so,
Fucking believe it.
as it would be a huge moral dilemma and definitely
Bro.
wouldn't fly well with the general public. So what they did do was gather over 1,500 human samples, primarily consisting of babies
So-
and young children, without the consent or knowledge of the families that they were taken from. These 1,500 adolescent cadavers were not originally from the United States and were actually from countries like Australia and the UK, and were
What the
acquired by
fuck?
some pretty disgusting means, specifically preventing parents from examining their deceased child before they were sent
So these were dead babies. Oh, ooh, man.
away for nuclear testing. Typically, these deceased children were sent in parts to not raise suspicion, as parents may notice their entire child missing, but they may not notice their child missing a leg if they are not
leg or
able
arm.
to view the
Oh,
child's body in its
man.
entirety. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is extremely dark and honestly disgusting. The initial studies on strontium-90 only analyzed the effects on the human remains. However, shortly after, it expanded to studying its effects on natural environments, such as soil, grass, and grazing animals.
I feel. I mean, I don't. I'm not down with. I'm not down with killing animals either. But good. Whew.
Where they were seeing what the effect of this
Ooh,
strontium-90 would be
goodness
as it
gracious.
ascended up the food chain. I don't think it'll serve as much as a surprise that once the
Ew.
practices of Project Sunshine were exposed, they were met with widespread outrage and even resulted in a stricter ethical standard when it came to scientific
I
research.
believe it, bro. Can you imagine? Like, how are they getting this information? How are they getting where dead babies are born? How are they getting from other countries? Who are they contacting? This is nuts. Like, this is crazy.
Specifically those involving human subjects, dead or alive. It literally
Yeah.
sounds like something your crazy uncle would say at Thanksgiving dinner. Hey, can you pass the potatoes? Yeah, here you go. Oh, did you know that in the 50s, the US government was actually essentially stealing dead children from
Yeah.
overseas and using them to test the dangerous byproducts of nuclear fallout? Oh, crazy. Honestly though, it
Pass
sounds
the-
too
pass the
crazy to be
turkey,
true.
nigga.
But one thing I've learned from researching for this video is that, unfortunately, some things are too crazy to not be true. But anyways,
Facts.
that's all I got for now, guys. If you aren't satisfied and want even more crazy conspiracy theories, let me know in the comments. I'll definitely make another conspiracy theory video in the near future if that's something that you want. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna thank you.
But again, man, I appreciate you for doing this. This is a great video. Don't make another one. Don't you do it, brother. This video almost at 800,000. Now, I will say, it's funny, but it's true. There are knowns and there is known unknowns. You feel me? I will never debunk any conspiracy theory ever because I don't trust humans enough at all to, again, like this, all this stuff is crazy. Didn't know about it. Well, most of it. Didn't know about it. I'm not surprised at all. For humans, boy, especially during that time, because that time was like, whoo, they was like really, really on there infiltrating in their infiltrating bag with the civil rights movement and over, as you see overseas and stuff. So I'm not surprised. I think that's all I really got to say. Hey, man, keep your head up. Till next time. I'm out.